Welcome to another episode of Debates with Nav. Today we're going to be talking about the 2020 NBA Hall of Fame class that features Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and the late and great Kobe Bryant. Now, before we get into it, I want to make sure you guys have a chance to win a lot of money, so please download the Thrive Fantasy Sports app for the best fantasy experience around. Use promo code TWSN in your first time gaming on the Thrive Fantasy Sports app. And we thank Thrive for being the sponsor of the Right Way Sports Network. Now, let's get right into it. Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant. They're officially Hall of Famers. That's the greatest achievement you can have as a basketball player. That shows that over your entire career, over the entire stretch you played, you were one of the best of all time. That's something no one can take away from you. And in that sense, we're going to be discussing who had the best career out of the three. Now, I don't think Kevin Garnett is in this discussion, and let me tell you why. Yes, he was really dominant throughout his career, and he did set many records. He is a champion. We're not taking any of that away from him. But he wasn't as dominant or didn't have nearly as much talent as either Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan did. So he's not, and he didn't have as much accolades in a sense. So we can't really include him in this conversation about who had the better career between the three. Now, once he's out, you're down to Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant. Now, as you may know, I'm a huge Kobe Bryant fan. I'm even repping his jersey right now. And I have to tell you, the greatest career between the two, this is tough. No, it really isn't. I have to go with Tim Duncan. Now, that may sound like a shocker to you. But let me tell you why Tim Duncan had the better career than Kobe Bryant. Tim Duncan was a 15-time All-Star. Kobe Bryant was an 18-time All-Star. However, you could say that Kobe Bryant didn't deserve some of his All-Star appearances due to the fact that the voters just got him in due to the fact that they're nostalgic and it was his final couple of years and they wanted to see he was still one of the prominent figures in the game of basketball. So they wanted to give him one last chance at, memories to remember throughout his career of playing. And after that, in terms of real accolades in a sense, they both have 5 NBA titles, and Kobe Bryant has 1 NBA MVP. Tim Duncan has 2 NBA MVPs. Tim Duncan has 3 NBA MVPs. Kobe Bryant has 2 NBA MVPs. You start to see a trend, and they both have the same amount of all NBA appearances. So when you take all of that into consideration, 2 categories are tied. Kobe Bryant leads 1 category, and then Tim Duncan leads 2 categories. So 2 is greater than 1. Tim Duncan overall led in the accolade department. He had more accolades, and that's due to more consistent winning throughout his career. Now, people are going to knock him for winning more than Kobe Bryant, and they're going to be like, oh, Greg Popovich, greatest coach of all time. That was Tim Duncan's coach. Tim Duncan had that throughout his entire career. Kobe Bryant, imagine him in the Greg Popovich system. Kobe Bryant had Phil Jackson, who's arguably the greatest coach of all time as well. One of the greatest. Him and Greg Popovich are interchangeable. I think Greg Popovich is a little bit better since he never had Jordan or Kobe or that level of talent to work with. But in a sense, they're both on the same tier in terms of coaches of all time. And Kobe Bryant had Shaquille O'Neal as well. Shaquille O'Neal was the best player during Kobe Bryant's first 3 championships. People don't realize that. Kobe Bryant won 5 championships, but for the first 3, Shaquille O'Neal was the finals MVP. Shaquille O'Neal was the MVP of the league. Shaquille O'Neal was the best player in basketball. Shaquille O'Neal was the best player on those Laker teams from 2000 to 2003. Shaquille O'Neal was the best player in the league. And this is not taking away from Kobe's legacy. He can't help that Shaquille O'Neal was on his team. He can't help that Phil Jackson was his coach. But it certainly is valid points when you're trying to diminish Duncan's legacy for the fact that he had Greg Popovich throughout his career, but Kobe Bryant had Phil Jackson for all 5 of his titles as well. Now, people say, oh, Shaquille O'Neal, to knock Kobe Bryant's legacy. They're like, oh, Kobe would have never won without Shaq. Shaq carried Kobe. No, that is not the case at all. It was a mutual relationship. Kobe Bryant would have never won without Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal would have never won with Kobe Bryant. How do we know that? Because we saw it. In Orlando, Shaquille O'Neal, if he was that player of that magnitude that we were talking about as an all-time great, and he is an all-time great, but if we're going to elevate him to the status of like top 5 of all time, we can't ignore what he did in Orlando when he had a chance to win with Penny Hardaway, Horace Grant, Tim Anderson, and those boys. He had a chance. His team was stacked in Orlando, but in the modern era, he has either the first or second most swept playoff series of all times. He's been swept the most, or the second most, I think, to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But Shaq has been swept consecutively throughout the playoffs. He's failed to show up when it mattered the most until he got to Los Angeles and until he started playing with Kobe Bryant, until he started getting coached under Phil Jackson. So you can't necessarily diminish Kobe Bryant for the fact that he has Shaquille O'Neal, but Shaquille O'Neal wasn't some playoff superhero before he got to LA. That was not the case at all. He needed Kobe Bryant to win, but Kobe Bryant also needed Shaquille O'Neal to win. But the reason why Duncan separates himself is Kobe did have that amount of help. Duncan did have Greg Popovich, but Duncan had two other Hall of Famers on his team as well. He had David Robinson for his first couple championships, and then he got Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker for his other championships. And he always had another Hall of Famer during his championships, or like future Hall of Famer in a sense, because Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili are not in the Hall of Fame yet, and Kobe Bryant had Shaquille O'Neal, he had Phil Jackson, he had Pau Gasol, he had all of those players, either Shaquille O'Neal or Pau Gasol, throughout his championship appearances. And during Tim Duncan's championships, he had only one other teammate make an All-NBA appearance. Tony Parker was his only other teammate that made an All-NBA appearance. And that was in 2014. He was an All-NBA second-team player. Kobe Bryant, throughout all 5 of his championships, he had another All-NBA level teammate. Either Shaquille O'Neal or Pau Gasol made the All-NBA team, whereas Duncan only had one. And throughout Duncan's playoff series, he had all of his superstar teammates, in a sense, or Hall of Fame teammates. They shot sub 45% from the field. So you can't necessarily say, oh, Duncan had this level of help. Yes, he did have a lot of help. And we're not diminishing Manu Ginobili or the greatness of Tony Parker either. But it shows that Duncan elevated his play despite the fact that his teammates' play was not up to par when he needed them most. He still brought to the table what he needed to win, and the Spurs still ended up winning due to his greatness, due to his winning mentality. And Kobe Bryant, we can't ignore the fact that once Shaquille O'Neal left, the Lakers started losing. The Lakers were terrible. Kobe Bryant was the only thing keeping the Lakers going. And we can't, yes, he had very little to work with. Like, he had Kwame Brown, he had Mush Parker, he had a very bad team, and we can't blame him for that. But in a sense, if he is that great of an individual talent, if he's that great of a player with that great of a coach in Phil Jackson, then he should at least make the 8th seed into the playoffs, right? If he's that great, he should be able to elevate the success of his team and get over that hump and make it to the playoffs. But he didn't, and that's always going to be a little stain there. It's not that big of a knock against his career because you saw the collection of talent he had to work with. It wasn't a lot, but Duncan always found ways to consistently win, and that may have just been because he was a better teammate than Kobe. His teammates wanted to play with him. Shaq left because he wanted to get away from Kobe. However, Duncan was the one who kept all of them together. Hell, Kobe even wanted to leave the Lakers. He wanted to get traded to the Pistons, and until Mitch Kupchak, the general manager for the Lakers at the time, put an absolute steal, a robbery, to get Pau Gasol over to Los Angeles that eventually convinced Kobe Bryant to stay and won his final 2 championships with Pau Gasol, and he had his storybook ending as the all-time great Laker. But we can't ignore those 3 years and what they meant to Kobe's legacy. While Duncan won multiple championships during those not those 3 years, but in over that stretch, where Kobe didn't win a championship. We can't ignore what Duncan did, because that was Duncan's prime in a sense. That was when Duncan did his most winning, was when Kobe did his least winning. So he capitalized on that situation. And his finals record, I'm not going to hold, we can hold against him in the situation since they both had a collection of talent to work with. But Duncan's finals record is also more positive than Kobe. His longevity in terms of production was longer than Kobe's. So you can't ignore the facts on that table. Obviously, Kobe Bryant is the more talented player. He's the closest thing to Michael Jordan we have ever seen. He's a better scorer. He's a better playmaker, even though there's always memes about him not passing the ball. He's actually a great playmaker. And you can't ignore what Kobe Bryant did throughout his career. But how much of what Kobe Bryant did in terms of statistics and how much of his individual talent actually contributed to winning that, Duncan did as well. Duncan won just as much, and winning is the most important thing in sports. So when you're talking about who has the greatest career, it's the one who consistently won more. And yes, they had the same amount of championships, but who won with a lot less help, who consistently kept winning throughout his career, and who never fell off a cliff in a sense. That player was Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan had a better career than Kobe Bryant because of his success. He wasn't the better player, but he had more success throughout his career, and he had more accolades in a sense, and the more complete career. So, who had the better basketball career? I think it has to go to Tim Duncan.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed what you just watched, make sure to subscribe down below for more sports debates, news, content, etc. Go ahead. I'm waiting on you. Right down there.